Alright, time to read the Tangle and Whisper annuals. I'm expecting these to be really good for some reason. I think it's because people just seem to like Tangle and Whisper, and there's been pretty much no Tangle and Whisper in the actual comic so far. So I'm assuming a lot of it comes from the annuals. Or people like them because of what they do in the next 3 volumes of the main series. I don't know. I'll have to see. Or maybe they're just not good. Who knows? Okay, so this first one was 4 short stories. So I think this is the annual. And actually, the 4 after this are Tangle and Whisper 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I guess I'll do the Tangle and Whisper one last. The first one I'll talk about is the Sonic and Tails flying the tornado, because there's really not much to that story. I mean, it's a good story, don't get me wrong, but there's no anything to it. I really don't have anything to say about it. It's literally just Tails teaching Sonic how to fly the tornado, and they get into a little fight, and that's it. Next one is about Silver and Blaze, who generally get put together, even though they're not really related anymore, since 06 was retconned itself out of everything, but this is kind of, poetic in a way. This one is literally less pages than the last one, but it's like twice as much story. Blaze finds Silver trying to grow plants, which is something that he obviously is going to have an interest in because he's from the future where there's basically nothing anymore. He can't grow anything though because the land's all messed up with chemicals, so Blaze turns a bunch of it to ashes and then uses that as fertilizer, I think. And then we seemingly get a little time skip and see them all grow out, and Silver and Blaze have their nice little garden, which is pretty nice. It's nice to see these 2 characters interacting or getting any spotlight at all, and teaches kids how to grow stuff. Next story is about Rough and Tumble trying to loot a tomb. They run into Rouge, who pretends to be a mummy and is revealed to be protecting some people using the egg golem from Sonic Adventure 2. And all I really have to say is I like how Rouge is characterized here. She's like, oh hey handsome, which is very Rouge-like. She's bringing out the boys line that she loves to do. And at the end, she's like, oh yeah, it's nice that I helped you and all, but can I have something? And they're like, yeah, okay, fine. It's a nice little Rouge story, and I guess Rough and Tumble are entertaining here as well. And then the one that's technically the last one is just Sonic's fan club, who are having a race. They run into a bag Nick. Tangle shows up and she's like, oh, I'll take care of this. And then she screws it up and Sonic saves the day. So that was fine, I guess. But back to the Tangle and Whisper story. Tangle's basically asked Whisper to hang out with her and to show her around. And, well, they're basically getting to know each other. Whisper's really shy. They meet this character called Jewel. So her name's Jewel. She's like a jewel bug. And then she's a curator of a museum full of jewels and other things. And in come the Babylon Rogues. I keep getting very close to saying Rouges. Babylon Rouges is not correct. Storm takes Jewel thinking she's a jewel. So of course Tangle and Whisper take chase. The look on Jet's face when they find out that Jewel's a bug. He's just so fed up with Storm in that moment. He's just... The art's really good, is what I'm saying. Also like how Jet has such a huge ego and he's like, no, we can't look weak in front of them, and Wave's just like, shut up. Storm throws Jewel like an idiot and she breaks her wing, and Whisper's starts having PTSD or something, and she jumps out to save him. Tangle jumps out and they all group together, and it's like, oh my god, I know you don't like being touched, but this is important. And then they save the day, they clean up the shop, and everyone's happy. Whisper also takes her cape off, so that's cool. Oh, and she fist pumps Tangle's tail, I guess. But yeah, the annual was really good. I mean, the fan club story is kind of boring. And the Sonic and Tails pilot one, again, just feels like you gotta have Sonic in it because it's, Sonic the Hedgehog. When really, it wasn't that interesting of a story. But the other 3 were really good. This might be the best single issue so far. Mainly because I like the side characters in the Sonic franchise and they don't usually get the time to shine. Whereas this had the Babylon Rogues, Tangle and Whisper, Rouge, and even Rough and Tumble, I guess. And then Silver and Blaze all got a little spotlight. So yeah, this is probably my favourite issue so far. Wow, I didn't realise how long the annual was until I read this. Also, I forgot to mention that Jewel and Tangle are childhood friends, which I guess makes sense that she would have a friend. Tangle is pretty extroverted. So Tangle's being pretty energetic, screwing around in town, bangs into something, and then they run into Whisper chasing after what seems like Sonic. Before that though, Jewel uses the word precocious, which I don't like. What kid is gonna read that and know what that is? They're just gonna be like, they're gonna look at that and they're gonna be like, precious? They don't know what precocious means. Anyway, Sonic's acting extremely suspicious and makes Tangle go after Whisper. He tells her that Eggman put a mind control chip in Whisper's mask, and Tangle rips it off of Whisper's face and lets him get away. Also, Whisper's such a little brat in this comic. It's really adorable. Just saying. But yeah, so then Whisper shows Tangle a video of basically him revealing himself as Mimic, which is a character I knew about, but I did forget about him for like one panel. Whisper tells Jewel and Tangle about the fact that he's a mercenary who betrayed his own team, and also he uses like a combat knife, which is pretty metal for a kid's comic. I'm all for it. There's also an implication that, you know, there's something deeper going on, which there obviously is, because she has like PTSD from something he did probably. Obviously Tangle wants to help, and Whisper's initially like no, but then basically the Wisps change her mind about it, with the help of one particularly sad looking Wisp. Mimic leaves a note on the door, and now they're gonna set off in the next issue. Honestly, this is more interesting than the main story, mainly because these characters are brand new, and, well, they're focusing on characters they can actually develop. If there was a Blaze and Marine story, or a Amy and Cream story, like, that would work, but they don't really do that, for some reason. I guess because these characters are new on their own. Or maybe even a Team Dark. Why is there no Team Dark book? That would be amazing. They're doing Bad Guys, which is mainly about, again, a new character storyline, but hopefully they'll do something with the original characters at some point. Okay, first thing, Whisper pulling down her mask is pretty cute. I also like how Mimic says that Whisper is using the Wisps as a crutch. Anything that degrades Wisps is good in my books. They find this warehouse and split up like idiots, mainly Tangle's fault. And then Jewel calls out to Tangle, and we know that that's Mimic. And then Tangle and Whisper go to help her, and I'm like, why is Whisper not suspicious of this? And then it turns out that he turned into Jewel and then turned into Whisper, and he locks Tangle up in a vault, in a little vault. And I was like, wow, that was pretty good use of his powers. I also didn't notice that Whisper wasn't whispering, which is, I mean, why would he not know that? I mean, she didn't even have the gun. You could have just said that. Why would he not know that? I mean, she's called Whisper. How would Mimic not know to do that? Then he pretends to be Tangle for Whisper, and he's like, well, my clothes are ripped, so it's gotta be the real me. And it's quickly revealed. Well, it's not really revealed. We already know that. But Whisper gets momentarily fooled. So then they fight, and Whisper is pissed. I love the art. Just to reiterate, like, the art is so good. I love it so much. It's so perfect for Sonic. Then Mimic, of course, turns into a maybe dead or maybe trapped in another dimension, presumed dead teammates. One of them, the little green girl, is really cute. Just saying. But yeah, then basically Mimic manipulates her into focusing on saving Tangle, which he needs to do anyway. Also, his face when he gets hit with the hammer is so fucking good. Anyway, he leaves and we finally like get a proper look at what he is, and he's a squid he's a really good design. Like, it's all like stringy, and he's got like the black irises, or whatever you call that. I think it's iris. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's called something like sclera. It's black, and that's cool, is my point. The Whisper gets Tangle out of the vault, but then everything's exploding, so they have to get back in the little vault, and because of that they survive, which seems like a poor idea on Mimic's part. After that, Whisper tells her to go home, and I really like how she's shaking under the mask. Tangle's feeling insecure about the fact that she messed everything up by being fooled by Mimic, and Whisper is like, I don't want to lose anyone else, even though their friendship is kind of like, I don't know, starting a friendship that isn't on an emotional beat is very tough to show, so I get that. And then the issue ends with Whisper saying, oh, I'm going to reveal what happened, so I guess I'm excited. This cover's really nice. Like, Whisper has a great character design, and her whole gimmick, I really like it because she has the mask and the cape, so whenever she takes the mask or the cape off or puts it on, it's meaningful. She also whispers all the time. Whenever she is or isn't whispering, it's meaningful. When her eyes are always closed, so when she opens them, it's always meaningful. Like, it's just a very compact character idea, which I think is pretty well executed. So this issue is just the backstory of what Mimic did, and Whisper is so happy in this, like, almost scarily happy. The mask lets Whisper talk to Wisps, which is pretty crazy. I hate saying wisp, wisp, wisp all the time. I can't say it very well. Also, it's just kind of like, again, about Whisper, like she's smiling when she's talking about her friends, like when she's opening up and being vulnerable, her eyes are opening up. It's just so well done. Okay, so the 3 other people that aren't Mimic or Whisper get ambushed because Whisper's the scout and Mimic's the traitor. They get ambushed by shadow androids that look like the second player in the Sonic Shadow the Hedgehog video game with the yellow or orange or whatever that color is. So Whisper's friends get killed by shadow androids by command of Dr. Eggman through a betrayal by Mimic, which is very complicated. And I don't know what's going on here where Mimic's like, oh, we don't need to kill her, and he's all stuttery, and I don't know, I don't know what this is about. Because then he goes outside and he's just like, oh, I'll just give Eggman this mask and say it's Whisper's mask. And so he thinks that she's dead too. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of... and he calls her a coward, and I'm like, is he playing it up with Eggman, or is he soft on Whisper for some reason? Like, is this some Itachi-like thing where he knows she's there when he says this? And so Tangle is, of course, pretty emotional about it. And she's like, well, why can't I come with you? And Whisper's like, well, my friend's died. I don't want to see any more die. I feel like that's pretty obvious. And Tangle's like, no, you gotta take me with you. And then Whisper's like, oh, thank you. And she gives her a hug. And it's very nice. And it ends with Mimic finding a message, like the message he left for them, calling him out. Dude, this is so good. Like, I love this. I love everything about this. And so it ends pretty well. Some decoys show up. They already have a plan, so they split up. Mimic tries to fool Tangle by pretending to be Sonic again, and I don't know how he possibly thinks he's going to get away with that. And it shows everyone on his team, like, giving him support. Even Whisper, who's just, like, smiling, which is just so uncanny now. Also, I definitely think there's something deeper going on with Mimic, like, especially because there's a pause panel where he's almost, like, looking at his hands or something. But at the same time, Ian Flynn's off the book now, and I'm pretty sure this doesn't get any development, so maybe it isn't Bad Guys. Maybe that's what that's going to be about. Or maybe there's just nothing to it. Maybe he's just pure evil, but I doubt that. He turns into Jewel to get her off guard, and then they have a little fight, and then Whisper shows up to help. He starts attack. This is another strange thing. Mimic's like, Blue, you hate violence. You're not going to let her do that, are you? And Blue's like, well, I guess I'm not. I'm like, Blue, this is why I hate Wisps. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're a knob. Of course, Whisper just whacks him with the fucking end of the stick anyway. But this is what I mean by there's probably something deeper going on. Tangle starts slamming him around, and he turns into Vector at one point, and he looks super crazy. Like an evil Vector would be pretty bad. They do the whole, don't shoot him or you'll be as bad as him thing, except it's a bit better because it's a bit more realistic. Because Tangle's like, well, wouldn't it be better if he just lived and suffered with the shame and, lived in cell the rest of his life or whatever? Which in this world is not going to work, but for kids is a pretty good message. And realistically, when they get out, there's a chance that they could, return to society and turn themselves around. Mimic could also reveal to be like, have been blackmailed or something, which could completely turn around his motivation and how he's perceived. I have a feeling that's coming, but at the same time, him being a Mimic is so useful as a villain that it doesn't seem like he would ever stop being a villain, you know what I mean? But him just being like, oh, it's just business, it would just be flat. I think it's maybe going to turn into it was either me or them kind of situation, and I chose me selfishly or something. So he's going to be like a more neutral character in the end. Also, I like the part where he's trying to taunt them, and then Tangle taunts him back, and he's like, I dislike you immensely. And then at the very end, they fist pump and then split up, probably to set up the fact that they're split up in the zombie saga. And that's the end. And honestly, this is the best arc so far. I've enjoyed every part of this. This is 10 out of 10. This is, well, maybe 9 out of 10. Mimic was pretty dumb at that, pretending to be Sonic. Like, what was that about? Also, I remember that he definitely tried to kill Whisper, and he was like, rest in peace, Whisper. I said earlier that perhaps he was being soft on Whisper. Maybe he still was, but it's probably more of a survival of the fittest type of thing that has some sort of trauma attached to it. Maybe. Either way, this stands as its own. It leaves room to go places. It has a bunch of great characters. Yeah, honestly, this was just a 10 out of 10 book. Or a 9 out of 10. I don't know. What's a 10 out of 10, really? The story and art were really good. which doesn't usually happen. Like, it's probably because it was like a kid's thing, so it's a simple story with some hidden depth to it. Again, at the beginning there was those two kind of boring stories, but they don't really count, you know, in the Tangle and Whisper part of it. Like Tangle Whisper 1, 2, 3, 4 is mainly what I'm talking about. And the only flaw or issue I can think of is the whole Mimic thinking he could get away with being Sonic again, which is just baffling. But I could see him being cocky. I could definitely see him thinking Tangle's stupid. So that also checks out. So if we're looking at the whole thing, which is, why would you look at the whole thing together? Because the first part is an annual, but that would be a 9 out of 10. If I'm just looking at 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Tangle and Whisper, that'll be 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Perfect score. It'll be interesting to see them back in the main book, but I doubt it'll be as good as this, to be honest. I mean, this is 10 out of 10, I just said.